from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy color computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right. This is your host, Matthew McConaughey. What's your vote for Texas governor? No.
It's a true swagger.
All right. Thank you very much, friends, for listening in to episode 72 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. Welcome. I, of course, am John Linville. I'm joined by, of course, Mr. Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, John, and everyone listening.
And, of course, Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Myro.
Greetings to all.
Well, let's see. Time marches on. It's another month. The Tandy Assembly is only 4 months away, coming along very quickly. The world, at least in the United States, so things are opening up. People are going to Walmart and not wearing masks, eating out at restaurants, and having all kinds of good times. So we're hoping that things are looking good for Tandy Assembly, and hoping that all of you will join us there for some CoCo Mania. CoCo Fest, that is about 5 months away, because, of the way things were rescheduled this year. But between the two, I hope we're all looking forward to making it to at least one of those. What have you guys been doing? Are you working on anything fun recently?
I've been doing a little hacking with a light pen. I may do a video on some of that later. But, yeah, it's been kind of cool. And I also was playing with two products. One was called Big Basic, and the other one is called 512K Basic. But there's programs on your CoCo 3 that give you, more than 24K for basic programs. So they have they're very different products. One's just pretty straightforward, and the other one has some really interesting kind of like memory management, 8K pages, kind of multiple programs and 8K blocks and things. So, yeah, it's been kind of fun.
That's cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I might have a copy of one of those. I haven't messed with it much, but it seemed like you could have multiple programs in memory at once and switch between them, not while they're running, of course, but yeah, pretty neat product for back when BASIC was more of a concern for for programmers, right?
Right.
Which I guess it still is for all of us to some degree, since we're retro heads.
Exactly.
What about you, Neil? You been doing anything fun?
No, not this past month, actually. I got to get back into it. I finished up one last Gamester. Yeah, that's about it for this month.
Cool. Well, you can only woodwork so much till your hands get rough and sore. So
Yeah.
I've had other concerns recently, and haven't spent a lot of time with CoCo stuff. I guess I need to get back into it. It's only so many months before there's some big events. Anyway, what about acquisitions or eBay? Pick up anything new? Anything cool?
I did manage to pick up a CoCo lot up in Richmond Hill, which is near Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
It was the remnants of a lot, but there's still quite a bit left there, so kind of neat.
Cool.
One of the treasures in there is that card reader, that Radio Shack card reader. So I want to try to get that talking with the CoCo.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm not sure how to swindle you out of that, but break out the cables for one of those floppy disk combos that you were interested in.
Yeah, possible trade.
Really dazzle you with that. Oh well, yeah. That's I think the only thing I picked up was a color ink cartridge for the CGP 220, or it's actually for the Panasonic or whatever the OEM equivalent.
Okay.
So one of these days when I dig that beast out from under the pile, maybe I'll actually be able to put some liquid into it and make it paint pretty pictures.
Well, that's awesome.
Problem is,
cool.
I think it's actually easier to find the color cartridges than the black ones. So I don't know if it will run with just one or if you get one that's half empty and still make it work. Or
yeah, I can't remember on that.
It's an experiment for another day.
You do some painting in CoCo Max and print from there.
Yep. Well, I mean, I think Ron Delvaux is burning that up for all of us these days. But
Yeah.
Well, that's probably enough to get us started. So why don't we take a little break and then we'll be back with some announcements.
After more than a year of lockdowns, it's time to start anew. It's time to rejuvenate. It's time to assemble. Tandy Assembly is go for 2021. Whether you're a fan of the TRS-80 Model 1 or the Tandy 3000, the MC-10 or the Model 16. If you're a fan of Tandy and Radio Shack computers, Tandy Assembly is a place for you. It's time to learn. It's time to share. It's time to assemble in Springfield, Ohio, on October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Visit tandyassembly.com for details and hotel reservations. It's time for discovery. It's time for fun. It's time for Tandy Assembly.
All right, welcome back, CoCo Maniacs. Again, you are listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast, episode 72. This is the first episode of our 7th year. Like volume 7, chapter 1, something like that.
Wow. I can't believe it's been that long.
It is crazy how long it's been.
It doesn't seem that.
Life is a funny thing sometimes, right? It just goes on.
Yeah.
You are listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are available on Twitter as at CoCo Crew Podcast. That's @ CoCoCrewPodcast. If you'd like to send tweets, feel free to tweet at us. We may tweet back. We also have a page available on Facebook, and it's called The CoCo Crew Podcast. So that's 4 separate words. Come and check us out. Maybe get a little early or different news or interactions with the show hosts or other hobbyists. Cool place to hang out, cool place to be. So come and check us out on Facebook at the CoCo Crew Podcast page. We are a podcast, so we are available through Apple Podcasts and, of course, Google Play as a normal download them kind of podcast. Of course, we also have a standard RSS feed available at cococrew.org. But I always just assume that you already found that one, or else you probably wouldn't have found the show notes anyway. Anyway, we also are available for streaming through Spotify, through Stitcher, and, of course, through TuneIn. So pretty much however you'd like to check out your podcast content, we should be available. And if for some reason you're having trouble finding us, how did you get this message? I don't know, somebody got it for you, whatever. If you're having trouble finding us with your favorite service, let me know and I'll see what I can do. For some time, we've been taking our audio podcasts, doing some conversion of them to a simple video form, uploading those to YouTube. So we are available on YouTube with a playlist, and the link is in the show notes. So you can watch us instead of listen and watch at the same time, really. But the advantage to that is mostly for people who enable subtitles, and so that you can, if English is not your first language, or if you have trouble with the accents or something like that, it can be helpful to have the written version of what we're almost saying. So, let's see. We are a member of the Throwback Network. This is a list of retro-themed podcasts, mostly centered around the 80s and 80s culture. If you are caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for something else to listen to, especially something that has a an 80s tilt to it, then we recommend that you check out the Throwback Network. We also are listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This, too, is a list of retro-themed podcasts. In this case, all of them are centered around form of 80s era entertainment technology, gaming systems, or home computers. Again, if you're caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast looking for something else to listen to, then we recommend that you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. The audio for the CoCo Crew Podcast is hosted by Cyber Ears. If you ever need to host audio on the internet, whether it be your own podcast or announcements from your church or something for your clubs or hobbies or whatever, then we recommend that you check out Cyber Ears, where you will get your audio on your terms. If you want to reach out to the hosts of the CoCo Crew Podcast via email, we have a few email addresses set up. The first three will reach all of the hosts. Show, SHOW, at cococrew.org. That's at COCOCREW.org. Also podcast, PODCAST, at cococrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at cococrew.org. If you want to reach us as individuals, we have those available. John, JOHN, at cococrew.org. Neil is available as Neil, NEIL, at cococrew.org. Mike is available as Mike, MIKE, at cococrew.org. Boise is still available as Boise, BOISY, at cococrew.org. At this point, we announce our various events that may be of interest to you. Generally speaking, these are events in Meatspace, although the first one is still a virtual event this year. Coming up July 23rd to 24th of 2021, that is Kansas Fest 2021, 16-bit virtual edition. Again, this is mostly an Apple II centered event or other Apple, 8-bit program or platforms. It's a virtual event. Not a lot of interest to me, but could be fun for you. If you do, check it out. Give us some feedback. Let us know how it went for you. Love to hear it. August 7th through 8th, 2021. VCF West 2021. VCF West is for everyone: computer geeks, families, children, students, collectors, IT professionals, and curious onlookers. This will be, again, August 7th and 8th, 2021, at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. So if you're on the West Coast of the United States, if you're in Silicon Valley specifically, then definitely check out the Vintage Computer Festival West 2021. It'll be a good event, great time will be had by all. Coming up August 20th to 22nd, we've actually got kind of two events in one here. Overarching event is Southern Fried Gaming Expo, held at the Marriott Renaissance Waverly in Atlanta, Georgia. Southern Fried Gaming Expo features more than 250 arcade and pinball machines, dozens of new and retro console systems, a massive tabletop library, RPGs, wrestling, music, tournaments, a vendor expo, exciting panel sessions, guest speakers, and so much more. Sounds like a cool event. I hope so, because I'm at least tentatively planning to go. Haven't got my tickets yet, but planning to go. Hope to see you there if you show up. Could be a cool event. What will make it even cooler, of course, is that co-located with SFGE, same dates, the Vintage Computer Festival Southeast 8.0 2021. So, the Vintage Computing Festival event is being hosted by the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. So, a cool bit of collaboration there. Hopefully that makes for a cool event with nice facilities and lots of people. It'll be a cool thing.
Who doesn't love Atlanta in August?
Well, yeah. It is a little hot in Atlanta in August. But
sounds good to me.
It's well worth it. So, it'll be a cool event. Well,
great event.
All right, so moving on to September. So we're starting to cool off a little bit. September 11th and 12th of 2021, we have Vintage Computer Festival Midwest 16. VCF Midwest 16 will be held September 11th, 12th, 2021 at Waterford Banquets, Elmhurst, Illinois. Portion of the webpage still has one of those cool 1994 era under construction animated GIFs. Not a lot to it, but Should be a cool event, a broad array of finished computing hardware and software and, wetware, meaning the geeks, should be on display. Cool event. I'm kind of interested in going. I'm not sure if I'll make it, but could be a cool thing to go and see. After the year we had, we deserve one where we blow it out going to silly events, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, overdue.
That's it.
All right, well, so speaking of one that's a little bit of a stretch for most of us, we got 18th of September 2021, RetCon, the Retro Gaming Festival 2021 by the Greenford Computer Club, held at Greenford Community Center, Oldfield Lane South, Greenford, and then a UK postal code. I was under the impression that this is in the London area. Looks like a cool event, kind of gaming oriented. Let's see, what is this? More playable systems, exhibitors, guest speakers, and many events than ever before, you say? Oh, it must be RetCon. The Retro Gaming Festival is back for 2021. Super fun retro gaming event created and run by fans, especially for you. So set course for the Greenford Community Center. As far as I know, it's the 18th of September. Anyway, anybody want to go to London in September? I think it's kind of a cool time to go. But
Well, that would be a fun
good time to
trip.
go.
if you're a Dragon person, or other UK person, or even nearby parts of Europe, and you're not too mad about the Brexit thing, maybe you can make your way to London. It's a lovely city, and find your way to RetCon could be a cool thing to do. It's a good excuse to go to London, and how much excuse do you need, right?
Exactly.
All right, well, the only problem is, it's only a couple of weeks from there until, so don't stay too long. And you need to make your way to Ohio for October 1st through 3rd, Tandy Assembly 2021 in Springfield, Ohio. We're back, Tandy Assembly 2021, scheduled for October 1st through 3rd, Springfield, Ohio. Exhibitor registration is now open. If you'd like to have an exhibit, please see our exhibitors page. All of our speakers, if you have an interesting topic you'd like to present or talk about and will be coming to Tandy Assembly, we would like to hear from you. See the speakers page for more details. Tandy Tech Track. We're happy to announce that Tandy Assembly will again be offering the Tandy Tech Track. This will be a selection of highly technical topics presented by some of the leading figures in the Tandy Radio Shack TRS-80 vintage computing community. We are actively soliciting for Tech Track teachers. See more details on the Tandy Tech Track page. Tandy Assembly 2019 t-shirts and hoodies are still available. Very cool. You can order shirts and hats and all sorts of cool stuff like that. But the main thing is to get yourself to Springfield, Ohio for the October 1st through 3rd. And if you're a CoCo person, bring your mania. Come and be a CoCo maniac. It'll be a very cool event. I really think this should be our big event this year. And, go up and make it worthwhile. I'm sure we'll all have fun. So moving on. So the next week, October 8th through 10th, 2021, VCF East 2021. Again, it says reschedule. It's kind of an old headline now, but moved on to October 8th through 10th. Finnish Computing Festival event that's held in Wall, New Jersey at the InfoAge Science Center. Definitely if you're in the northeast part or in, somewhere close to, say, the New York City area, good access to Wall, New Jersey. Go and check things out. A good event. Lots of old computers, lots of, certainly microcomputers, but even sort of bigger, mini computer size stuff and whatever. You see a lot more there than you see in other places. Cool event. Do try to get out if you can. And coming up November 5th through the 7th, 2021, the Midwest Gaming Classic. This is being held in the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Midwest Gaming Classic is a trade show featuring 150,000 plus square feet of retro and modern home video game consoles, pinball machines, arcade video games, tabletop RPGs, computers, tabletop board games, crane games, collectible card games, air hockey, and that's just the start. The Midwest Gaming Classic is about celebrating gaming, trying new things, learning about the gaming hobby, about meeting others who share the love of gaming, and having fun doing it. It really does look like a cool event. Sounds like a cool event. I know our buddy Ron Klein has gone to more than once, and he says it's a great event. So if you're in the upper Midwest for the early part of November, you should consider making your way to Milwaukee and going to the Midwest Gaming Classic. That leads us to the last event that we have right now. Our list of events coming up November 6th and 7th of 2021. The so-called 29th annual Last Chicago CoCo Fest. This will be held at the Holiday Inn, Chicago, and Oak Grove. There's plenty of information at the link in the show notes. You can find information about travel and the scheduling and food and all that kind of stuff. Check it out. It's been a good event in the past. Get a chance to go to the Chicago area in the first week of November. Might be a good place to go if you're a CoCo person. All right. So that brings us to the end of our announcements. Why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with the news.
Build performance into your system with OS 9 software tools from Microware. Unix-based, multitasking, modular, and versatile. These key features are some of the reasons why more 6809 computer manufacturers have selected OS 9 as their standard operating system than any other. OS 9 has been put to the test by thousands of users in almost every conceivable computer application in business, science, industry, education, and government. Choose from powerful development tools such as OS 9 Pascal Language Compiler, the most complete and versatile Pascal available for the 6809. CIS COBOL Compiler, ideal for most demanding business applications featuring ISAM. Basic 09, Structured Basic Interactive Compiler, fastest and most comprehensive full basic language available for the 6809. And the C Language Compiler, complete implementation of the Unix version 7 C language, includes integer, character, signed, unsigned, float, and long data types. For more information, contact your computer supplier or contact us directly at Microware Systems Corporation, 5835 Grand Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa.
Unix is a trademark of Bell Laboratories. CIS COBOL is a trademark of Microfocus Incorporated. OS 9 and Basic 09 are trademarks of Microware and Motorola Incorporated.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back to the show. You're just in time to hear the news.
First story this month is actually a collection of 4 videos. A brief history of personal computer displays from this is from Paleozoic PCs at YouTube. Pretty cool set of videos covering a lot of low-level video on single-board computers back from the 80s, covering GALs, character generation, sync and address generation. So, yeah, definitely an enjoyable set of videos.
You know, video is an interesting topic. I think a lot of people don't know that much about it until they dig into it, and then they do, and then they realize that it's actually simpler than they thought it was. But still, it's not. I don't want to suggest that it's super simple, but at some level, it's timers strung together. But it's more complicated than that sounds. If you get what I'm saying. But it's a neat topic. I know I'd like to build some video stuff if I ever get infinite time and enough money in retirement. But
Our next one is from Canadian Retro Things at YouTube, reliving the nostalgia of type-in games. Another fun video going over the different, back when all the programs you bought were in books and you typed them in yourself. Covered several of the earlier ones and talks about typing some of these programs in. If you are a person who had those books, you will definitely enjoy that video and a retrospective on them.
It's amazing that ever happened. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, you bought computer programs in printed books and you typed them in yourself? What? How did you possibly get that right? Well, most of us didn't, you know?
That's right. Yeah, you learn the most when you made mistakes, yeah.
Well, that's true.
Okay, our next one is from Kieran Anscombe. XROR tape reading updates. Now, I'm not quite sure. I know he's I don't know if he's really just talking about improving that he's trying to import some tapes, or if this is actually part of XROR. Maybe you can help me out there, John.
Yeah, well, I thought it was announcing some improvements made to XROR, probably because he had some issues using XROR with these tapes. I don't know. It's looked like an XROR announcement to me, so I wanted to include it. But yeah, it says if there are tape samples you've been having trouble with, maybe give this version a shot. There's a tape history, says option to set it to other. So if you got tapes you're having trouble reading and you want to get them onto XROR, give it a shot with the newest version and what you get from it.
All right, our next one is from Jens Dimer. Dragon Pi is an open source GPL version 3 or later emulator for the 30 years old home computer Dragon 32 and the Tandy TRS-80 color computer CoCo. So this is another, you've heard of CoCo Pi. This is Dragon Pi, which of course would share a lot of similarities with the color computer. Sounds like it could do either the Dragon or the TRS-80 color computer. That would be more like the color computer 1 or color computer 2. But another solid Python emulator that's out there that you can run on a Raspberry Pi. That's a cool project. Check it out.
That is cool.
And I was always tempted to think, well, don't we have enough emulators or whatever? And it's like, well, maybe in some sense, do we have to have a new one? No, but if somebody wants to write a new one, maybe they've got their itch to scratch. And when you implement something again, sometimes you do it in a way that maybe there's something novel about your implementation that it might become the new way to do it, and all the other emulations have to pick up your change or something like that. So, still a good thing to do. So very nice.
Got an update from Darren Atkinson on MCX Basic 3.1 update. If you've used the MCX devices for your MC10, you know they're cool devices. So there's an update available for MCX Basic. Mostly it's bug fixes and a couple of new features. So that's cool. It's still being maintained, and those are great products if you've got an MC10.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. Very handy.
Yep, very cool.
We got one here from Alexei at msx.org. Looks like the time of Gotex with the STM32 chips is coming to an end. This is not good. Mainly, well, for one reason, I still don't have a Gotek, oddly enough. But more so, the big issue here is it looks like you can't update it with this the new guts inside, with the programming software, from what this article is reading here.
Yeah, that's how I understand it as well, because they've changed the chipset or whatever they're using.
Yeah, so that's an issue.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of thing you always have to be aware of when you start, hacking the hardware, hacking as in downloading somebody else's thing and following directions. The projects, hardware, especially consumer-grade hardware, tends to change over time. Things like this can happen. Hopefully, it sounds like to me that the manufacturers are still being cooperative, so it'll probably still be available for the same kinds of purposes for the foreseeable future. But
right.
There might be some changes to adapt to.
Yeah, if anybody's curious, the article reads it's the new chip is the AT32F415. All right, our next news article is it's a Facebook post from Paul Shoemaker. There's actually a couple posts here. He's done some updates. He has a playthrough of his current project, which is called Poker Squares, with a CoCo 1 and 2. And then he has an update post on that. And also a third one with a virtual disk you can download for the CoCo 1 and 2. And it's the version that supports... Looks like it's a version that supports the VG6 mode on the CoCo VGA. The graphics look really cool on that. I haven't tried it myself.
Yeah, that is nice looking. That's pretty cool. I haven't tried it on mine either, but it does look interesting to see those different modes.
Yeah, it's sharp seeing that run on a CoCo 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yep, really cool.
Yeah, I have to give that a load. Check it out.
Is Poker Squares, is that like a real life thing and that he's just adapted, or did he make up the game to then put on the CoCo? I kind of assumed that it was something real that he just adapted for the CoCo.
That's what I figured too. Not 100% sure though. Have to play the game and find out. Yeah, good work, Paul.
Yeah, very nice.
All right. Next news article here is another Facebook post from Bart Van Den Acker. And he runs the Computer Museum, by the way. It says, look what we got in the museum. A Tandy monitor. And this is a cool monitor. I've only seen one of these in real life. It's CM23. And basically what this monitor is, it's a rebranded Commodore 1084 screen, which is very common, very popular. And but what's really neat about it is they've actually restored this thing. It came in broken and they had to replace some parts. Mentions they replaced the flyback, being one of the biggest issues. And it's just nice to see these old things being saved, restored and preserved over the years. So good to see.
Yeah, cool.
Got it running there with Sockmaster's Donkey Kong. That's a cool demo. All right, our next news article is another Facebook post by Ron Delvaux. Some of you probably recognize his name. He runs Ron's Garage, and it's titled CoCo Max 2 on my Tandy color computer 2. So he's demoing it there, showing he's doing some drawing on it. You see him do it in real time. It looks like he's got booted off a CoCo SDC for that one there. And he's got the actual CoCo Max 2 cartridge for the mouse input.
That's the only way to fly.
Yeah. All right, next news article is from Marco Melanson. Here's why it's a Facebook post, by the way. Here's why the disk version of Megabug does not run properly. Now, this I did not know.
Essentially, if you take the Megabug, if you rip the cartridge and put it on a tape or a disk image and then try to load and run it, you basically get a different behavior, which is probably some bit of cleverness that's intended to catch pirates or whatever. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that he explained part out, how it behaves and why it works that way or whatever. So
it's kind of cool that actually be protection on a cartridge. You wouldn't think so. Pretty clever.
Well, you can do things. You can check to make sure it's not writable, for example, and
right.
Behave differently.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, good post.
Yeah, very cool.
It's neat seeing stuff like this.
All right. Let's see. Next link comes to us. So it's really two links. So both coming to us from Barry Nelson. Version 2. What was missing is there was a version 1. The link is not in here. I don't remember if we got the link in an earlier episode or not. But anyway, there was an earlier link to something similar. But version 2, better, cleaner error handling. Side effect is that if you now run DOS manually and there is an issue, it fails silently. The disk with the DOS boot track is present when BASIC starts. It boots. If no disk is present, or it gives a read error, or it's not a bootable disk, you're dropped to BASIC without an error. So basically, he's got a disk ROM, disk extended color BASIC ROM that's been modified to default to running a DOS command, so that it's a little bit smoother booting up to something that's you're booting off a disk. And probably ideally for someone who's focused on using OS 9 or Nitrous 9, or if you're really dedicated to playing Infocom games or something like that. And then he's got another ROM, what's the pre-configured ADOS disk ROM. So same idea, but with ADOS instead of the Tandy disk extended color BASIC. ADOS being a kind of advanced version of, modified version of disk extended color BASIC with some niceness to make it running a little more comfortable at the command line and that sort of thing. So very cool. Thank you, Barry.
Make your Tandy color computer more versatile with great additions from Radio Shack. The Tandy Multipack interface is just $99.95 and allows you to connect up to 4 program pack cartridges. Easily change between the 4 slots using the front panel switch or switch slots under software control. How about adding an 80-column adapter? Just plug in the WordPack RS cartridge to your color computer and attach a monochrome monitor. It generates crisp, clear 80-column text with true upper and lower case characters. And it's just $99.95. Find these and other great color computer products only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Here it comes. It's the game show. The game show is a lively party game where 2 teams compete against the clock to name several items from different categories. It's great for parties and family gatherings. The game show uses color graphics and sound and includes 60 rounds of questions. It's 100% machine language for fast response. The game show requires 16K with extended color BASIC. The Game Show from Genesis Software, Manchester, Missouri.
Word processing doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive either. All you need is a TRS-80 color computer and Telewriter 64. It's no wonder it's the most popular word processor for the color computer. Telewriter 64's fast, full-screen editor lets you easily type and make corrections. Insert or delete text anywhere. Use advanced features like block, copy, and move. And Telewriter 64's menus are easily accessed from the editor at any time. Printing is a breeze. Use a dot matrix or daisy wheel printer. Telewriter 64 turns your color computer into a professional word processing system. And now it's available at Radio Shack stores everywhere via express order. Find out what so many already know. Telewriter 64, the color computer word processor.
The next link actually comes from, as we like to book it in, Mr. Rietveld, or Henry Rietveld. Remember last month we talked a little bit about the FrogFind search engine, which was the somebody basically implemented a search engine that would redirect your web access to strip down web pages so that they could then reasonably rendered on an old computer. Henry here is using the search engine via a terminal on this CoCo 3 with some sort of internet modem, kind of demonstrating how it works. Been seeing links for a while from Erico Patricio Montero, who's doing this SG4 fighting game. It's like a kung fu fighter.
Yeah.
So it says live dev. It's a video live dev on that AAA AAA fight game for the PS80 Color and Basic. It looks kind of cool if you're into fighting games. Worth checking out. Could be a good use of your time. It might be fun to play. You never know, right?
Yeah, his animation is really cool. It's surprisingly good for that resolution and in basic.
Yeah, definitely. You do have to squint your eyes a little bit, but considering what he's working with, it's pretty impressive to get anything recognizable. So, very cool. So, check it out. All right, kind of sticking with the Latin theme, shall we say. Link comes from David Gisbert. A few months ago, a Dragon group was created in Spanish-speaking Telegram. Interested, send me a private message and I'll pass you the direct link. Apparently there are 22 users. And then he switches to Espanol. Hace unos meses se creó un grupo. I'm sure that's terrible pronunciation for the Spanish there. But anyway, if you're a Dragon user, a Spanish-speaking Dragon user, maybe even a Spanish-speaking CoCo user, I assume, it might be fun to get on the Telegram for chat and speak with other Spanish language users. One way to interact. So, all right. So this is from Mr. Jim Gary. He's got a checkers game for the MC10, and it is called MC Checkers. MCCHESKRS. The video showing it says board, so I added a cursor, AWST input for microcolor checkers from Tandy. Still runs in 4K. Had to use Renum from MCX Basic and some other code condensing tricks, but I got there in the end. Doesn't play a very good game of checkers, though. So anyway, well, you can only get so much, I guess. But kind of cool. He's messing with the checkers game. It sounds like he used microcolor checkers as a base, trying to add his own enhancements. Pretty cool. Thanks to Jim. Good work as usual. Just making and sharing software for the MC10.
Got one here, a Facebook post from Mike O'Hearn. Franken Joystick. This was a really cool post. It caught my eye, because I do enjoy making, Gamesters and other joysticks. So what's neat is he created this, but it looks like because he didn't have a joystick. So he just came up with this, and it just has a couple, there's a fire button and a couple, looks like just some potentiometers. Would you say that, John?
Right.
It doesn't actually, it's not actual like a real joystick.
It's like an Etch-a-Sketch controller.
It's right. It's like an Etch-a-Sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's got separate axis.
Left, right. Yeah.
But it is, it's essentially, electrically, it's essentially the same as a Black Beauty or whatever other joystick. It's just kind of, it's got that Pong-like, two-handed Pong feel, I guess.
Yeah.
It's It's a good
This is
solution.
what
It is.
this is the controller we needed for that story last month on the flatbed
Oh, yeah.
laser plotter. That's what I was saying. This is what you needed for the Etch-a-Sketch field.
That's it. Yeah. It'd be perfect for that.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's neat to see these projects. All right. Next news article is from Jenny List at Hackaday. An Arduino with a floppy drive. They're driving a 3.5-inch floppy drive off an Arduino. Also shows here it supports 5 1/4 drives, both double density and high density drive support. Looks like a pretty cool project. Works low level floppy disks. You can read them sector by sector. It even incorporates FAT-FS library for MS-DOS FAT. That's a really cool project.
And it is, and it's it's one of those, if you're going to learn a whole lot more about than anybody ever thought they needed to know about something that's essentially useless. but
It's antiquated, sure.
It is something, and it could lead you to a career as a docent or a curator at some sort of retro computing museum. So, I mean, it may not be so bad, but...
Well, it's cool. After we've had a rash of stories about this on the Raspberry Pi, it's cool to see this on something as low level as an Arduino now.
Yeah, well, the Arduino seems, more appropriate at the technical level, I think.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, our next news article is from Robert Allen Murphy. We haven't heard from him in a while. It's titled Sounds of Silence. He's just basically wrote on his blog here for his project. First couple of months of 2021, he hasn't really done much, but now it looks like he's back in the game. He's working on some sound for his game here, supporting the Mega Mini, MPI sound, also supporting DAC sound. It's good to see he's back working on it.
Yep. Cool to write about what you're doing and give some other people some inspiration, motivation, or, something for them to pick up and use sometimes.
For sure. Next news article. This one's right up your alley, John. At least I think you're into these computers. It's a post from Paul Fiscarelli.
Yeah. Making
music with a 45-year-old computer, and this computer is the SWTPC 6809.
I didn't know Paul was into these until fairly recently. As I recall, the card he's using essentially is a 6-bit DAC, but in a SS50 or SS30 form factor, the factor that you need to fit in such a machine. So the software is probably pretty much the same as what you would put on a CoCo. Music data would be essentially the same as what you'd use with a CoCo DAC. So it's pertinent to the CoCo at least. But yeah, it's cool. To make the old machines make some noise. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love seeing the Southwest Tech products in there. That's cool.
Yeah, I've only seen these. I've seen one of these running at VCF Midwest. It's a cool computer. Someone had it on display there a few years back.
Yeah.
All right. Last news article here for me in this section is from ADE at worldofdragon.org. And it's titled, Anyone Experience on Obtaining Licenses from Old Games? Yeah. Later on, ported a game over to another machine here, ZX Spectrum. So just want to get the rights to do that, looks like here.
And he's looking for micro deal. So it's also a CoCo target or a producer or whatever. Anyway, it's just a cool topic for older stuff if you want to have access to those older games, especially if you're actually hacking the older binaries or somehow distributing the older binaries. Possibly you could run afoul of intellectual property laws using the graphics or written materials or whatever relating to those games. Honestly, doubt you'll get into much trouble that way, but you never know. It's possible. All right. Got a link from Robert Sieg. TP10 is a thermal printer for the MC10. That's a little matter of fact, but he also says, let's take advantage of a few loopholes to get some extraordinary graphics. And he posts, about 10 pictures of graphics he's gotten out of the TP10. They're graphics. They certainly are. I'm not sure what he's demonstrating here, but certainly is some mastery of putting graphics on the TP10 printout. So,
Yeah.
If you have any interest in that, TPT and what sort of output it produces, and he looks like he's got, the MC10 graphics tool. Yeah, some kind of tool he's demoing, running on or alongside or for use with the MC10, which is an emulator. It could be some information that could be worth your time if you're interested in the overall topics of the TP10 and or MC10. So check it out. And so moving on to something a little different. This is from, the author is Jennifer Billick, writing for Wired Magazine. I battle my panic disorder by mowing virtual lawns. So it's literally just mowing. A simple mobile game has become part of my mental health toolkit. May it inspire you to find one that works for you. So anyway, the point of including a link, which is, the text is plenty there. You read up on it. I can't really tell you in any detail what's said there, but other than description of the game. But I think many of us have probably seen these mowing style games or whatever. I admit they seem a little silly to me, but maybe there's something worthwhile there, and maybe they seem simple enough that you could implement one for the CoCo and use your Black Beauty to steer your mower around, a virtual bird bath and and the hedgerows or whatever. It could be a fun game. So there, be inspired, read up on it. Maybe it gives you some other thoughts and other kind of, maybe it initially sounds crazy or boring, but it could be a cool game for someone. So thank you, Jennifer. All right, moving on. So here's another one that's sort of spiritual, cultural, whatever. This is written by Fritzy Kramer, writing for Smithsonian Magazine. The title is Why We Need to Keep Searching for Lost Silent Films. In this case, it says early motion pictures gives us an important window into our collective past. He goes on to talk quite a bit about, essentially what the topic describes, finding old prints of old movies and silent movies and what kind of things they depict. And, in this case, there's a racial component to some of this that probably doesn't fully apply to retro computing. But the overall notion that media from the past can be important and enable as part of understanding the past and maybe for understanding the present, I think that applies to retro computing, and so there's some food for thought there. So check out the article, take a look around, maybe find an old film or something that you can check out and see if it makes you feel better about the world.
Oh, I'm dead. But check out that high score.
How did you do that?
With the Gamester. It's a real arcade joystick with arcade buttons.
Can I try?
Sure.
Wow, this has really got some weight to it.
Yeah, it's made of real wood.
Is this walnut?
Yep. You can choose any wood or finish when you order yours.
It looks great, and this joystick is amazing.
It's smooth, and the buttons are great. You can choose a custom cable length, or even get a left-handed version.
I'm sold. Where do I get mine?
Introducing the Gamester. The Gamester is the ultimate 2-button joystick controller for your color computer, Dragon, and Tandy 1000. The Gamester features a genuine arcade-quality joystick with 2 large arcade-quality cherry switch buttons on a single surface. Every Gamester is built to order. Choose the wood for your cabinet. Choose custom paint or stain and finishes. The Gamester is designed to last a lifetime. To build yours, simply reach out to Neil Blanchard by email. Neil@CoCoCrew.org. That's NEIL@CoCoCrew.org. Experience genuine arcade controller action for all of your favorite color computer, Dragon, and Tandy 1000 computer games. For true arcade action, it's the Gamester.
Tandy keeps red, red like the brake key. Tandy keeps green, green like the TV. Tandy makes all of your dreams come true. Tandy's got the magic of CoCo too.
TRS-80 color computers are better than ever. We improved our most popular family computers with a compact white case, low-profile electric typewriter quality keyboard, and reduced the system price. Come see the new TRS-80 color computer too.
Tandy makes a product that's brand new. Tandy's got the magic, Tandy's got the magic, Tandy's got the magic of CoCo 2.
Give your color computer true lowercase with the LCA47 from Micro Technical Products. It plugs into your CoCo motherboard without any soldering or cutting. Install the LCA47 and your CoCo display's true lowercase. Onboard switches allow you to enable or disable the LCA47 or reverse the video display to display light characters on a dark background. It's 100% compatible with all color computer software. The LCA47 doesn't use your expansion slot or take up your CoCo's precious memory. It doesn't interfere with semi-graphic or full graphic modes. It only takes 5 minutes to install. What could be easier? The LCA47 is just $75 plus shipping. It also works great with the Microchroma 68 and others that use the 6847 VDG chip. See what a difference lowercase can make. The LCA47 lowercase adapter from Micro Technical Products, Mesa, Arizona.
I got a blog entry here from Joel Reese. Not exactly sure what Joel's background is, but I read enough of his posts to suggest that he did some work with Motorola processors at some time back in the day. Here he makes a point, the title of the blog post, the 68HC11 is not a modified 6809. And then he follows up with, in parentheses, and what if. And so I think the what if part is buried a little deeper in the blog. But I think the point is he stumbled across a 6809 Wikipedia page, or a Wikipedia page. No, this one, a Wikipedia page for the 68HC11, and there was sort of an assertion there that the 68HC11 was somehow a follow-on to the 6809 because they have similar architecture. They do have a similar architecture, and there's bound to have been some inspiration at some level, but I don't think it's officially recognized. Anyway, they're also not the same, and one is not a superset of the other. So you got a pretty long blog post with a lot of information talking about some architectural details. If you're like me and find that sort of thing interesting, then you should go and check it out. He also touches on what, if any, relationship there is between the 68,000 and the 6809. I think he even mentions the 6803, which is the processor, and the MC10. So a lot of good data here. Read it, consume it, love it. That's all worth knowing. So thanks, Joel. This is an older blog post, but I just found it recently. So the post was originally made in December of 2018. Anyway, check it out. So this is from Lewin Day, writing for Hackaday. What NES, that's Nintendo Entertainment System, development looks like on the Apple II. And so I just thought it's a little bit of a quirky thing, but basically it shows someone using an Apple II with an EEPROM programmer and using tools on the Apple II that they're really designed for the Apple II, but in the case of the Apple II and the NES, they share not exactly the same processor. That's the Apple II GS. Well, no, I guess the Apple II, they're not exactly the same processor, but it's pretty close. Anyway, it's a 6502-based processor in both cases, and so you can use the same tools to develop code for both of them. In this case, they're developing ROMs to run on the NES using the Apple II. Okay, so what? Could you do something like this on the CoCo? Well, you could. Obviously, you're not going to be able to use the exact tools that you use for the CoCo. You're not going to use LWSM, for example, to write any NES code. But you can still do something similar. You could have your CoCo as the main development tool for your Nintendo, or maybe for another machine, or, you could use it with a Vectrix.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That would be cool.
That would.
There's a couple other smaller systems that are 6809 equipped, but not really the topic here. Anyway, I thought it was cool to see somebody using an Apple II to develop for the NES. There's no reason you couldn't do something similar with a CoCo. So there's your challenge. Figure it out.
All right. The next couple of links we have here are from Rocky Hill. TRS-80 CoCo 2 new blue mainboard, and testing the TRS-80 CoCo 2 mainboard revision 2 with improved RF. What he's done is copied the CoCo 2 motherboard. I'd have to take a closer look to even know which version of the CoCo 2 it was. He's had some slight fit issues from what I can see, so he's put it into a color computer case. Seems like the switches and ports don't really are kind of recessed a little bit on it, but still usable. Then he does have a video here where he actually went ahead and populated it with the chips and parts, RF components, etc., and shows that it's a fully functioning, working color computer too. I'm not sure if there's a big shortage of color computer 2s that would drive this. I think it's mostly just his own exercise to see if he can do it. It's probably fun. I hope he didn't gut another CoCo 2 for the parts, but that might be what happened. So you can check out the video and take a look for yourself. I don't know if he's making these boards available or if he's just experimenting with them or what. But there it is, a copy of a CoCo 2 motherboard.
Yeah, as you kind of mentioned, I suspect that if we're not already there, that we're entering a time period where it may no longer be possible to build at least many CoCo 2s without killing a CoCo 2 in the process, even though the chips were all off the shelf 30, 40 years ago. Or not quite all of them. There are a couple of custom Radio Shack chips in there, like the Salt, whatever. We may be getting to the point where to get a SAM chip, or certainly the 6847 T1 chip, it may be difficult or impossible to get one without killing a CoCo in the process. So right. I'm not sure the motivation here. I mean, it's cool. As a personal triumph, it's certainly a worthy accomplishment. I don't know that I'm eager to see a lot of these being sold, but that's just that's just me being a Luddite, I guess. But
see, they have these in the Amiga world, and it makes sense in that platform because most of those computers had a barrel battery that leaked. So I mean that's perfect in that situation because you can desolder all the components and get a fresh PCB with traces that are good. But on the CoCo 2, we don't really have that problem, unless you got some board issues of some sort. But
we've got that one capacitor with the brown glue at the bottom that everybody assumes is some sort of corrosive goo, but
right, it's just hot glue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, our next story here is from Nick Morentis, and it's another update on his 0 Hour Game development blog. So he has posted out there, if you've been following his development of his game 0 Hour, you can get the update here. So check it out. Graphics and things look like they're up to Nick's normal standards, so nice looking graphics. It's more of a high-level blog about the game, but if you're interested or if you've been following along, updates out there, go check it out. All right, our next one is from David Manners at Electronics Weekly. Do-it-yourself chip for $10,000. So, we finally entered the era where we could now design custom chips. It's now within our grasp, kind of like the 3D printing was once upon a time.
and injection molded plastic.
Right.
I mean, and so just in case anyone misunderstands, I mean, we're not talking about an FPGA where you can reload and put different software on it or whatever. I mean, we're actually talking about actually manufactured chips, custom chips. Pretty cool that it's still expensive, but it's kind of in the range that, especially if you had 2 or 3 investors or whatever interested in doing something for, a hobby or whatever. If you wanted to build your replacement Salt chip or a replacement DAC chip, you could do it for roughly $10,000. I'd really love to see that. Although we don't. I mean, if you want to build a replacement gimme chip, you should do it this way with really etched into hardware. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it would. That's pretty amazing, and it does seem cheap. I mean, I know that'll fall over time, right? The price will come down on that, but
right.
It's pretty amazing to think we're at that point now where you can custom design your own chips. That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
All right, we've got another entry from James Jones. I haven't forgotten. Escape from Color Basic isn't stagnating. So James has been working on a series about Basic 09. That's the Escape from Color Basic is
transitioning or introducing people to Basic 09, which is a structured language. So continuing with that series, it's excellent stuff. If you've never played with Basic 09, I would encourage you to check it out. It may be if you've been afraid of Nitrous 9 or OS 9, this may light the fuse that gets you more comfortable with that environment, gives you reason to be in it, and still have the familiarity of Basics. So good stuff. Check it out. All right, and our final story comes from Retro Analyst at Twitter. The creators of the 1982 arcade game Joust used photographs of a running ostrich to design the player sprite. And this is pretty cool because it shows you, the animation, shows you the films that they used from of the ostrich. And you can very clearly see it in the sprites that they use for the game. That gives it that realism, kind of like the same way that Prince of Persia did, except this is with the ostrich jumping and flying, all those things. And that's a great game, and it has that kind of realistic movement of the ostriches you're riding in that game, and it translates real well. So fun article, neat to see these little pieces of history.
Although, I never thought that the depiction of, armed warriors flying on ostriches was particularly accurate to real life. But, I digress. All right, well, that is, as you said, the end of our news segment. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with some feedback.
Since 1994, Cloud9 has made cool stuff for your color computer. Now Cloud9 is proud to announce the 2 MB Triad Plus memory expansion board. The Triad Plus works in two ways. Purchase just the Triad Plus board to expand your Color Computer 3 from 128K to 512K of RAM. Or add the new Protector Plus MMU to access the full 2 MB of static RAM aboard the Triad Plus. And the Protector Plus MMU utilizes full buffering to protect your CPU. Unlike previous 2 MB memory expansions for the CoCo 3, the Triad Plus operates seamlessly without the need for special patches, configuration, or workarounds. Games like Donkey Kong Remix and Sierra Adventure games simply work without hassle. And the Triad Plus will reduce your CoCo's power consumption and heat generation. The Triad Plus and Protector Plus MMU, only from the innovative engineering of Cloud9. Cool stuff for your color computer. Visit cloud9tech.com for details.
This month in CoCo history.
Welcome to This Month in CoCo History, where we explore events in the life of our favorite home computer. I'm John Linville, pinch hinting once more for Mr. Boise Pete. This month, we travel through both 25 years of time and through space, visiting Bellingham, Washington, in order to leaf through the May 1991 edition, that's Volume 2, Number 5, of the Bellingham OS9 Users Group's OS9 newsletter. There we find what anyone might expect from a newsletter intended for technical hobbyists. Bernie's Bitbucket provides an introductory how-to for setting up multi-view on your CoCo's OS9 hard drive. Bob Kemper provides an article which is a thorough introduction to the OS9 operating system. And Al Johnson details using Dynacalc with Phantom Graph. There is some discussion of various club activities and a fair bit of coverage of the various systems that were then in the running as the next home of the already diminishing CoCo community. We even hear from the now recently departed Mike Knudsen discussing the state of the MM1 at Rainbow Fest. We also hear from longtime and continuing member of the CoCo community, Joel Avey. Joel's article calls for the unification of the community around the various forms of OS9, including OS9 Level 2, OS9 68000, and OS 9000. All of these as a common base for software development. Through the lens of history, this is now both a sweet and somewhat sorrowful reminder of a different time in the history of both the CoCo and the computer world at large. a time during which an underdog refused to admit defeat, and in which a legacy was created that I believe endures with us and in us to this very day.
And that's this month in CoCo history.
All you've wanted in a computer and more. The TDP System 100, a complete system ready to plug into your color TV set. It features 16K of memory, expandable to 32K at any TDP service center nationwide, and expand from 32 to 64K through Southco, the Georgia distributor. Raised keyboard with gold contacts. Standard basic built-in from Microsoft. RS-232 interface device built right in. RF interface for direct hookup to any TV built in. Programming manuals included at no charge. Bust-out game pack included at no charge. Joysticks included at no charge. The suggested retail price is only $379 from Southco Sales Corporation.
All right, CoCo Cruisers and CoCo Maniacs. Now it's time to hear from you. We have some feedback from a couple of our listeners. First one to this month, we're going to take one from Terry Steen. Now, Terry wrote us, a little more than we're going to quote here. So we're going to quote the piece that we like the most. He says, thank you so much for your show, talents, and your sharing. Overall, Terry was very gracious and nice with his comments, at least for part of his comments. The rest, well, you know what you said, Terry. Honestly, I'm not insulted or mad or anything. I do think you're a little off base. Perhaps if we meet up in person at Tandy Assembly or CoCo Fest, be happy to let you buy me a beer and we can discuss it. Beyond that, thank you for writing in. It is good to hear from you either way. All right, so our other feedback, this comes from Brian Blake. This is Brian does his best to portray the part of the angry old man up the street. In the last month, I don't remember exactly what we said or what I said, but somehow took a crack at the Ford Pinto, which I thought would be pretty safe, honestly. I didn't know there were many people who would be offended by a Ford Pinto joke. But anyway, Brian says, by the way, I had a metallic green and a metallic blue Ford Pinto. One had a 350 horsepower 302 in it. This, of course, would be a Ford V8 engine. So stuff that in a Pinto, and imagine you have one that hauls rear end pretty good. But anyway, had a 350 horsepower 302 in it, and would routinely beat up a Camaro. Go easy, and then he gives a little wink face. So we know he's not offended.
Right.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing, Brian. Good to hear from you. Sorry for took a stomp on your Pinto dreams or whatever. All right. Well, that's our feedback for this month. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with probably with a host discussion or the rest of the show.
on. 6 months ago, the Red Legion demanded full political control of Alpha Sigma 3 and threatened harsh retaliation if their demands were not met. And while the Federation was able to secure Alpha Sigma 3, we weren't prepared for them to make good on that threat. The simultaneous release of the bioweapon L-2207 on all 34 colonies has infected all known plant life. We can't predict the impact to planetary ecosystems. But there's hope. Agents near the boundary worlds encountered a trader who had plants that appear to be immune to the effects of the virus. According to these agents, these plants come from a planet known as Zephyr. As you know, There are hundreds of unexplored worlds beyond Federation space. Your job is to find Zephyr and bring back edible plant life to see the planets and save the colonies.
Starship Falcon, a new graphics adventure game for your color computer. Can you find the planet Zephyr and save mankind?
Good luck.
Requires 32K disc. From Surcomp.
Okay, CoCo Cruisers, CoCo Maniacs, welcome back to a little bit more of three old guys talking. This chat is inspired by a tweet from Mr. Ian Boggist. Ian he's a professor at Georgia Tech, and he does a lot of writing related to video game topics, particularly older video game stuff, I think. Anyway, he's got a thread, so he starts a thread and says something about learned a lot of programming languages and techniques over the last 40 years or so. It's become almost impossible to learn how to make things with computers, no matter how much you already know, unless you spend all of your time doing so. Some of the reasons why, and then he splits it out, and then he has a series of replies to his initial thread, and he comes back and says, one reason I love making Atari 2600 games so much is because nothing has changed since 1977. And so I thought that was a pretty funny quote, and kind of gets at the heart of the matter here. With the, we're not doing Atari 2600, at least not all the time. For this podcast, we're not doing the 2600, but I think that largely applies to the CoCo, certainly the CoCo 1 and CoCo 2. CoCo 3 is 10 years later, but still same idea. Not a lot has changed, so why does it hold our interest? And maybe that's why it holds our interest, is because not that much has changed. I certainly get a little age on us, and I kind of wish things would slow down once in a while, or maybe stop, maybe go back to how they were in 1986. It's unrealistic, but it's kind of cliche, perhaps. It's funny, but yeah, I think that I get the point. Tend to agree that that's part of what makes the CoCo and a lot of other old computers interesting and worth playing with and worth experimenting with. You can have things go on in the back of your head for a long time and suddenly figure out, oh, I could do that and get this effect or whatever. You don't have to constantly be experimenting with the newest thing that comes out. Sometimes it's finesse and technique that really bring out the best in machines and in people. And I think that's one of the things that we all kind of learn or pick up as we ourselves grow older and learn a little more technique and maybe develop a little more finesse. So,
well, it's as the saying goes, less is more, right? But I think as you mentioned, as a programmer perspective, you can just focus in on that platform without having to learn new hardware and try to develop for it. That's cool. It could be more inspiring too, like you said, learning more tricks with the same hardware, and it's easier to stay focused, I guess.
Particularly for a hobbyist, it's good because you don't have. It's important that it kind of doesn't change too much, because if you're only spending part time learning about something and coming back to it, you definitely don't want something that's fluid and changing every 10 minutes, so that by the time you sit down to it again, it's some completely different environment.
Right.
Which you can get into with with modern computers. If you're not working with them daily, then you could get lost in a hurry.
That could discourage you too. I think on a project you might just lose interest.
For sure.
At some point.
Well, I think that's partly nostalgia as well. Of course, is that you like that it was that way, and there's a simplicity to it. That's the nice thing about it, is much of what you learn on a color computer is still applicable today, conceptually, if not literally, but the computer is small enough that you can wrap your head around it. It's easier to work with 8 bits than 128. So in your brain.
Yeah. old computers are kind of like old lovers. After a while, you've kind of tried all the usual things, and maybe it doesn't seem quite as exciting as it used to be. But, if you kind of keep at it and kind of maintain the heat in the relationship, shall we say, eventually you might find a few other tricks to try that may stoke up the excitement to harder than you would have otherwise thought possible. So how's that for philosophy?
There you go. There you go.
It's a good analogy.
So now my wife will definitely never let me be with my computers. Anyway. Well,
I thought.
Do you want to got anything else to add there?
I think perfectly. Yeah, you summed it up perfectly. We get where he's coming from.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, that'll have to do for now. So why don't we wrap this up before it's beaten to death? And we'll take another break, and we'll return with the rest of the show.
Why is Molly smiling? Why is Bob smiling? Why are so many people smiling? It's simple. They switched to Telewriter 128. It's the #1 word processor for your Color Computer 3. It's easy to use, lightning fast paging and scrolling, built-in help function, 26 user-definable macro keys, and of course, all of the features of Telewriter 64. If you're serious about writing, get a serious word processor. Telewriter 128, the Color Computer 3 word processor from Cognitech. Are you a new high school graduate excited about computer science and technology? Are you a professional just looking for a career change? Then Tandy University is for you. The Neil Brookings College of Color Computer Studies offers a variety of exciting courses designed to give you real-world color computer skills.
I chose Tandy University because of their emphasis on the CoCo 3 and OS 9. I just finished my associate degree, and I'm well into the 4-year degree program. One of the coolest things about the program is that you actually get to build a CoCo 2 as a prerequisite to your other courses. So you're really immersed from day one.
I received my degree from Tandy University. The Color Computer Studies program prepared me for a fulfilling career developing radar defense software on 6809 platforms.
Tandy University professors provide an excellent learning environment both in the classroom and online.
No other university provides this depth and focus on the color computer. Our Fort Worth campus is beautiful and modern. We have a very sizable color computer lab. This fall, we will be cutting the ribbon on the new Mark Siegel Memorial Library, which will feature an extensive periodical and book collection.
Tandy University is now accepting applications for the fall session. Our Fort Worth campus offers student dormitories as well as financial and scholarship assistance.
It's simply a delight and honor to teach students at Tandy University.
Don't miss your opportunity to expand your mind and your career. Call today, 800-LEARN-CoCo. Tandy University, where students excel.
All right, welcome back, CoCo Cruisers and CoCo Maniacs. This is, of course, John Linville, and I'm here with the tech segment for this month. We're going to talk a little bit. It's kind of an easier one, but maybe not too easy. Hopefully interesting. It's more of a topic relating to use of extended color basic. So we're going to talk about working with hexadecimal and maybe some octal numbers in extended color basic. If you've hung around the computer world for any length of time, you've probably noticed that computer programmers and engineers, computer engineers, electrical engineers, often work with numbers in formats that are described as hexadecimal or hex, because we're too lazy to say a decimal part. Hex really just means 6, decimal 10, hexadecimals 6 plus 10 or 16. Right? But we shorten it to hex because it's easier to say. Anyway, work with numbers in hexadecimal and octal formats. Why is that? Why do we do that? Also, do we need to use another language, for example, assembly or C or something like that, in order to work with hex values? And the answer there, of course, is no. So why use hex or octal? First of all, what are hex and octal? So here's one. It's a little bit of a mathy answer, but follow along, please. Hexadecimal and octal are numerical notations based on a positional numeral system. So basically that means, when you're counting up and you get, to 9, you don't have, there's not another number, there's not another individual character that represents 10. You just add a second character so that it becomes 1 and 0. That's the positional numeral system. So hex and octal are positional numeral system notations using different base numbers. So as where we use for normal life, we use a base 10 system, meaning we use the characters 0 through 9. So there's 10 of them. So you have to count 0 in there. Anyway, we use 0 through 9 for a base 10 system. And so hexadecimal and octal are kind of twists on that idea. For example, octal, which might be a little easier to think of at first, you just only have characters 0 through 7. And so when you get to the number 8 becomes 1, 0, because you pretend like you don't have a character for 8. And so you use their positional numeral system, and so you go from 7 to 1, 0, and that's the value 8 in octal. That probably is enough to blow some people's minds a bit right there, but that's how it works. And going beyond octal, hexadecimal uses 16 characters to represent numerals 0 to 15. But instead of creating new characters just for the purpose, which would have been just as reasonable in some ways, but more practical, is to kind of reuse characters that already existed on typewriters and computers and everything else, and kind of gives them a slightly different meaning. And what's a good set of ordinal characters that would be easy to associate with numbers? Probably the most obvious was to go with letters, right? So in hexadecimal, you use the normal numeral characters 0 through 9 for exactly those values. And then when you get to where you'd really need a new character to represent 10, you just use the letter A, or the character that we use for the letter A. Yeah, it's a mindset thing. Is it an A or is it a 10? Well, it kind of depends on the context. Anyway, once you wrap your head around A is 10, or the letter A represents 10, then the next one, B for 11, C for 12, D for 13, E for 14, F for 15. It's not too hard to get there. And then, of course, if you want 16, then you go back, add another character, add another space or whatever. It becomes 1 and 0, just like any other positional numeral system notation. So it really is fairly simple, although it can be a little mind-blowing. It takes a while to put your head around using them. So that's what they are. It's using is hex. Again, hex, we're just too lazy to say hexadecimal. So it really is hexadecimal, not hex, but, well, everyone says hex. And octal. So octal, if you read older computer science material, you'll see a bit more of use of octal. There was a time when things were still a little bit in flux, and it wasn't really even clear how many bits are in a byte, what was an appropriate size of objects to manipulate in a digital computer. So octal, I'm sure it had some appeal just because you didn't have the confusing part where you start using letters in case of numbers. Nowadays, hex is a lot more common once you get to this kind of thing. But I guess the real question, you might be screaming at the podcast right now, is why use either one at all? Why not just use, numbers? And so number one, you gotta get past it. They are numbers. Even though they look like letters, they're numbers. That's that's where you get into the weird, kind of little pet peeve when you're dealing with hex values and you get to, like say the hex value 4000. Lots of people then say hex 4000, but it's not 4000 just because you got 3 zeros. And thousands is a base 10 concept, and it's not associated with 3 zeros. It's associated with 3 zeros in base 10. I'm not going to go too long on this, but it does seem a little weird, but you have to wrap your head around it. So come back down to, why do we use them? Well, we actually do use them for convenience. And I know that seems really strange, especially when you're new to the whole idea of why are we using this stuff. If you have to work with a lot of numbers related to computers, say hardware addresses, or things that kind of break down along the computer realities like hardware addresses and memory sizes and that sort of thing. So remember, computers are binary, right? They use, we all hear about computers that use ones and zeros for everything. It's essentially true. If you stick just to the base 2, the binary system, you'd be writing a lot of numbers, and they'd all be really long, and all be like 111001111, 0101100111. It gets really long, really boring, really hard to say, really error prone to copy. And so the human mind it's not really built for dealing with long strings of numbers like that. So by using a different base, well, you can get a higher level of information density, so you can use fewer characters to represent a bigger number. And, once you get used to it, it sounds like you'd just be confusing yourself, but once you get used to it, it works pretty well. And so, along with the higher information density, it kind of increases your readability. And again, it doesn't help if you don't understand the numbering system if you're not comfortable with it, but it doesn't take that long to become comfortable with it in general, and it really does increase the readability by using that higher level of information density. So, it makes sense. It's not some just crazy thing that a wild-haired guy with goggles and charging his flux capacitor came up with. It really is a normal and good thing to do. So, if you want to use hexadecimal numbers or octal numbers in extended color basic, how do you do it? And so it really comes down to two basic concepts, which are kind of one basic concept, input and output, sort of one sort of inverse of the other. But if you're going to be using, a constant number somewhere, you certainly can use decimal constants. It probably seems like the obvious thing. Well, just use a decimal because then you won't have to do any conversions, right? Well, the truth is it's not just because you write a decimal in the computer, it's not really a number per se. It looks like a number to you because you're a human. But those characters in make up a number to the computer aren't really any different than the characters that make up a string. It still needs to be interpreted in bit by bit or whatever. And so when you write a number in decimal as part of this computer source code in BASIC, the computer can actually turn that into something that it can load into a register and perform operations on. It still needs to do the conversion. There's been some experiments in the community. Alan Huffman did some blogs a couple of years ago, and to me it just kind of makes sense. And maybe if you work your way through how conversions are done, which I'm not actually going to cover here, but maybe you'll convince yourself that it makes sense. Because hexadecimal and octal are fundamentally a bit closer to the binary representation the computer actually uses, the conversions to hex or even to octal, depending on the constraints involved, but certainly to hex, it's actually easier for the computer to do, so it can actually be faster if you use any kind of numerical constants in a hexadecimal format. So the way you do that is when you get ready to do a number, you type in an ampersand character followed by an H, capital H, well, of course it's all caps, and then the hexadecimal value, which of course is 0 through 9 for any of those digits, and then you get the capital letters A through F for any digits and with values that correspond to those. You can't be bigger than the decimal number 65535, which would be the hexadecimal number FFFF. You're going to use a hexadecimal constant in your source code, and you can use them for for loops or for data or whatever. You just pop a ampersand H in front so that the interpreter knows what you're talking about. And if for some reason you have a reason to deal with octal numbers, either because you know already familiar with octal numbers and know how to use them, or maybe you're typing in something with a program or algorithm from a really old computer science textbook, or whatever your reasoning, you can use an ampersand O for octal instead of in place of the ampersand H for hex. I don't know if there's an ampersand D for decimal. You don't really need it, obviously, but I can see where somebody might have put it there for convenience. I'm not looking at the source code right now. I don't think it exists, but if it does, that'd be neat. Somebody try it. Let me know. So dealing with the input, or the input side of your program. No, that's not literally on input or whatever. If you want to force somebody to type in hexadecimal, you'll have to do the simple matter of programming to process the incoming strings, and that's going to be on you. I don't have any big tips there. But when it comes to output, say you want to use a print command on a variable, you want to output in hexadecimal. I think you probably could write a basic program that would kind of do that for you. It might be kind of slow. It'd be a lot of code, pretty error prone possibly, especially because there's already a function to do it. So if you want to print out a value in hexadecimal, there's actually a function hex. It's HEX with a $sign, indicating it outputs a string. So hex string or hex $sign parentheses value, and that'll return a string. A string like a word, but it's a string of hexadecimal digits, and it'll correspond to the value of the argument to your hex $. Now, why would you want to do that? Maybe, who knows, depends on your program. Maybe your program is writing a hexadecimal calculator, or maybe your program is somehow computing where to put a value in memory or something like that. Whatever your reasons, that's on you. But, if you need in your basic program to output a hex value, then the hex $ function or hex string function is there for you. And again, this is only in extended color basic. It's not in color basic. I'm not sure if it's in the MC10 or not. That's probably enough for today's tech segment, or this month's tech segment. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're getting ready for Tandy Assembly coming up in October. I really want to see you there. If there's anything I can do to motivate you or to motivate others, or the big ideas, feel free to send us some feedback. Podcast at CoCoCrew.org, or you can talk to me at John at CoCoCrew.org. Or, whatever. It's not hard to find me on the internet. All right, well, bazinga, you've got it there. Thanks.
Have you ever needed to keep a family budget, estimate interest on your savings account or other investments, predict inflation's effect on your money, or figure interest on a loan? Maybe you sat down with a calculator or pencil and paper in hand, but were discouraged by the amount of time involved or the complexity of the calculations. Spectaculator can make quick work of these and many other problems that come up every day. You just give Spectaculator the figures it needs to work with, tell it what to calculate, and in one step, Spectaculator displays the results you're looking for. Long columns of calculations that took hours to wade through by hand are handled by Spectaculator in a matter of seconds. You can instantly recalculate using new figures and new ways of producing results. Print your information on a line printer or save to disk for future use. Spectaculator requires a TRS-80 color computer equipped with extended BASIC, disk drive, and disk interface.
From car and home repair to maintaining your ATV in the woods, Leatherman multi-tools make it easy to get the work you want done. Introducing the Leatherman Coco. It's made from 100% stainless steel and features 10 different tools, including a PLCC extraction tool, wire strippers with 4 different gauges, a DIP pin bending tool, and a soldering heat sink clip. All of the tools lock and unlock for your safety. The rounded handles provide a strong, comfortable grip, and the Leatherman Coco comes with a 25-year warranty. The Leatherman Coco. Real tools for real life.
New from the Cornsoft Crew. Avenger. Vaporize pests with lasers and pesticide bombs. But be quick about it. If you take too long to clear a wave of pests, the Avenger appears to target your pestcraft. A random vengeance encounter throws you into a whirl of attack birds. You must destroy each one, but when you do, they burst into a cloud of attack droids. Avenger, for the TRS-80 color computer, is joystick compatible. Just $19.95 on cassette from the Cornsoft Crew, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 72 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. This month I'm going to review an oldie but a goodie. This game is called Thexder. I had forgotten all about this game until recently, as I've been messing around with Nitrous 9 Ease of Use project, and I noticed it was included in the latest build. I started playing this game for a while and it all came back to me. This was one of the first cartridge-based games I owned when I got my CoCo 3. Thexder was originally designed and programmed by Game Arts, a publisher in Japan. Sierra acquired the license to port it to many different platforms in North America, including the CoCo 3. The CoCo 3 version was released in 1988 on a ROM pack cartridge. What's interesting to note is that it came in the traditional Sierra big box game package. Now you're probably wondering, if this is a cartridge-based game, why was I playing it in Nitrous 9? Well, you can thank a gentleman named Alan DeCock, a fellow Canadian at that, for porting the game to OS 9. According to Curtis Boyle, he mentions on his CoCo Games website, when Alan was porting Thexder over, he noticed it appeared the game was originally written for OS 9. There was OS 9 system calls already set up in the code. Perhaps it was changed last minute to cater to the no disk drive needed crowd, and it would also only require 128K stock CoCo 3, whereas the OS 9 version needed a minimum of 256K to run. Also mentioned on Curtis's website, Alan added a few extra options in the game, such as invincibility and multiple speed levels. And I will tell you, invincibility is a great feature to have, as this game is very difficult. Alright, on to the game. Thexder is a side-scrolling arcade platformer-style game. The character you control is a robot that also has the unique ability to transform into a fighter jet. As you navigate through the levels, you need to switch between the two modes to get through smaller passageways or parts where you need to fly. You don't just run and gun your way through this game, as you need to be careful and figure out the best strategy on how to clear all the enemies you encounter. The game is very difficult, as I mentioned earlier. You only get one life with a power meter. Once the power meter is depleted, the game is over. Your fire weapon is smart, and it will automatically seek out enemies. However, it also has a power meter, and it needs to be recharged by not using it for a little bit. In other words, you can't just mash the auto-fire down constantly. As I mentioned earlier, this game was ported to numerous different computers and game consoles back in the day. I must say the CoCo 3 conversion was done quite nicely. It has excellent graphics and very smooth animation. The only thing I would critique is the lack of in-game music. It only has a few sound effects. I remember playing this game on my cousin's Tandy 1000 and hearing the beautiful chiptune music playing through the TI sound chip. Perhaps thanks to John, now that we have the GMC available with the same TI SN76489 sound chip, someone could port the music over for the CoCo version. Possible CoCo project right there. Any takers? Anyone? Well, there you have it. Another fun CoCo 3 game to relive or play for the first time if you've never played it before. Grab the latest build of Nitrous 9 Ease of Use and give it a spin. Until next month, happy CoCo gaming.
You're listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast.
Well, we have reached the end of episode 72 on the CoCo Crew Podcast. As usual, I'd like to thank our host, John Linville, for procuring all the news articles each month and providing us fantastic tech segments. Huge thanks to Mike Rowan for painstakingly editing the podcast and creating those awesome commercials you hear. Last but not least, a big thanks to all of you who listen and support us each month. We really do like hearing from you and appreciate your feedback. Until next month, happy CoCoing and retro forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully. CoCo. 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 Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway? It's a blast from the past.
Dance, dance, dance.